Okay, so welcome back. Today is Tip Tuesday. We're filming this again on a Tuesday morning, and Jack's gonna do his magic and you're gonna get the results. These videos have been doing really well, get a lot of good feedback. Let's dive right in. Maximizing grip on your drift car. What are the variables, categories, and things that you need to consider when maximizing the grip? And some of it is gonna surprise you. So pay attention. Also, this is my opinion. So if you disagree, then that's fine, because it's not necessarily a fact, but it's based on a lot of data. So let's first talk about all the categories that I'm personally considering. The tire brand and compound, the tire size, the tire pressure, the tire temperature, the wheel speed, the wheel size, the track width, the wheelbase, the alignment, the vehicle weight distribution, the ride height, the shocks and the springs, and the suspension geometry. A lot of stuff. Might be missing a couple small points. Also, each one of these categories could be broken down into subcategories for sure, especially one like suspension geometry. I'm also going to talk about the percentages that I've allotted for each one of these categories. And you guys, this is where it all starts. On Facebook groups, on forums, on things, you see so many people talking about their alignment, their shock setting, their dampening, their whatever, and they're not considering the largest percentage of category at all. The first thing I ask somebody when they're asking how do I get more grip, I ask them what tire are they running. And usually what they're saying is a Chinese brand or something that just is not reputable, or it's just a cheaper tire that they can afford. And that is why they aren't able to obtain any grip. Here's a good example. When I do GT2 Lucky Dog racing and we go to the track, every single car is running the exact same tire. And if you aren't running the tire that everyone else is running, you will simply lose. It doesn't matter what your suspension setup was. It doesn't matter what your weight was. It doesn't matter at all. When you're doing 16 hours of continuous racing, there's only one thing that matters the most, and it is the tire. So why would drifting be any different? You can obtain almost all of your benefits if you simply just use a good tire. Yes, a good tire is going to be more expensive. Yes. But I will tell you for sure, if you had welded suspension, meaning there is no shock, you just stuck a piece of tube in there and you had the best tire, you would be faster and better than someone who's running a cheaper tire with all of the mechanical setup, everything perfected, because the tire is more than 50%. I put it at 60% of all your obtainable grip is all found within the tire. And I have a lot of data to back this up. So listen close on how I broke these down, and you are going to see my example of the breakdown on these two examples. I just picked two random examples on somebody's setup, which is this top here. This is somebody's setup. And then this bottom chart here is somebody else's setup. And we're gonna see why the top setup allows for a total grip obtained at 66%. So this basically means out of 100% of the grip you could have gotten, the top example was only able to get 66%. And then why at the bottom, out of 100%, they are maximizing their grip to 79%. And what are the main differences between these two people, and why is the one higher than the other? So let's break it down each section. So the tire brand and compound, I have input what this person is running. It's a Chinese 200 treadwear tire, very common. I'm not gonna name any names, but the tires that I'm referring to in this example are used very often. They do have a place in drifting. They last longer, they're cheaper, and they're great for having fun. But a lot of people use them in competition and then wonder why they struggle. So here's the example. Chinese 200 treadwear tire. They are going to get 35% of the available 60% right off the bat. Right off the bat, they're missing 25% of the available grip in the tire. Okay, so let's go down. They're gonna run a 285 35/18 tire. I gave them a 4.5 out of 5. Okay, so they're running a good size tire. So they're maximizing that option. The tire pressure, they got this baby down to 10 PSI. They are basically maxing out the available grip within that tire, so they get a 4.5 out of 5. Tire temperature. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the tire temperature is optimal. They're warming them up properly. 4% out of the 4% available. Wheel speed. They are running the optimal wheel speed. They've done their data. They've got their results. They're running 3 out of 3. Wheel size. It's an 18 by 10, fits a 285 nice and square. I put wheel size at 1%. That's basically because if you ran a 9.5 to a 10.5 to a 9 or to an 11, you're not going to see a massive difference in drifting. So this is a 1% option. Track width, optimal. We're not even going to go into that. The track width basically could be broken down into a lot of subsections, but I didn't give it that much weight as far as just purely the amount of grip that a chassis can get relative to the other categories. Wheelbase, again, optimal, 1% out of 1% available. Alignment, it's optimal, so they've got that at 3%. Actually, there's a mistake there, so 300. The vehicle weight, let's say it's optimal, they've got it as light as possible, so they're gonna run 3% out of the 3% available. Again, vehicle weight, you have to give everything a value to have it broken down by 100%. And originally I wanted to give the tire 80%, but then I realized all of these other categories must have some weight to them. Basically, I am doing the best I can to break down. Vehicle weight may be worth more than 3%, but when you really break it down on how relevant it is to tire compound, if you're in the range of, which I put a range over here, plus or minus 20% of the factory weight. So I haven't even talked about the variation, but the variation criteria is an important category. Pause it and read them. We have to keep these videos as if they're tips. Vehicle weight distribution. Let's say that it's not that optimal. A lot of cars aren't, unless you have like rear rad, quick change, battery in the back, all this. Let's say they're running 56% front. Optimal might be around 52, 53. They're getting a 1.5 out of 3. Their ride height, let's say they've got that optimized, 1% out of 1%. Shocks and springs, let's say they bought some decent two-ways. They're right in the middle, 2.5 out of 5 available. And then they have a full grip kit, the best on the market, 5% out of 5 available. So if you add all these up, out of the 100% available, they're at 70% because I made 2 adjustments. They're at 70% of what they were able to achieve. For argument's sake, they could simply change the tire and they could fill out the 60% of the tire compound and they would have basically a 95% total grip available. But they chose, like a lot of people, a Chinese 200 treadwear tire, and then they complain on why they're not able to compete or catch people, or what I like to call recover. So if you handbrake, they're on throttle, you need to recover, and your recovery time is very delayed and you feel like you lose a gap on them. A lot of that comes down to the tire. This is also not considering the driver mod. If you factored in 100%, this is mechanical. This is all mechanical. You would then take that 100% and put it into a subcategory, and then you would add the driver skill and all these other things that come into play, like seat time, stuff like that. Just mechanical, just mechanical. Leave the driver out of it. Yes, you could throw a pro driver like James Dean or Chelsea in basically anything with pretty much any tire, and their driver mod is so much higher, it will supersede a lot of mechanical things. So somebody made that comment in the last video. Totally agree with you. Seat time is the most important thing by far. By far. Let's look at the second category. So I'm not going to go into as much depth, but they are maximizing the tire. They're using spelled that wrong. Take the Y out of there. They are using a reputable tire brand that says 200 treadwear. They're getting the full benefit of that tire, 60%. The tire size, they're running a 285, again, 4.5. The tire pressure, they're running 15%. They are not even maximizing the tire pressure. They're running a safe value at 15, 3% there. Optimal tire temperature, the wheel speed's optimal, the wheel size is optimal. Let's say that they didn't really check their alignment, and then look at the variation, plus or minus 10% of the factory track width. They didn't maximize their wheelbase, they didn't maximize their alignment, didn't maximize their vehicle weight, and then their weight distribution. So they basically got 0, 0, 0, 0. This is a guy that just He's running what he brought. He just threw some great tires on, and you know, the car self-steers and it drives okay, but he's not specifying any crazy amount of detail on his alignment spec. He doesn't have the perfected caster, camber, toe, and it just relatively, you know, drives straight. It's not really set up for drifting. So 0, 0, 0, 0. He could have easily maximized it. He didn't bother. The weight distribution is fairly normal. 56% front. This would be like a normal sedan car, whatever. They're going to be between 54 and 56%. Didn't maximize that, so 1.5 out of 3. Ride height, let's say he lowered it. It's optimal. And then his shocks and springs. He's just running some entry-level single adjustable shocks and coilovers. 1% out of the 5% available. He's got a lot of OEM suspension. He didn't even buy a grip kit. Didn't even buy it. He's running OEM suspension, which would explain why his track width, wheelbase, and alignment are at 0%, because his suspension's not really that adjustable. He is still beating the other example. He has 79% of the total 100% available. Why? Because he got the right tire. So all of you people watching, you need to understand that the tire is the number one thing that you can just buy and you can just throw on and immediately improve the performance. I don't know why this is missing in drifting, because when you look at any form of time attack, road racing, anything, if you aren't running Cup 2s or if you're not running the race tire that everyone else is on, you are going to lose. Doesn't matter what you do to the car, you will lose. Drifting is no different. So take this for what it is. If you're trying to win a competition and spend the money in driving there, the fuel, the time, the people that are helping you, the hotels, and you're not buying the best tire, you're wasting your time and your money. So again, this does not factor in the driver mod. Maybe you want to run a cheaper tire because it'll help you work on your driving. That's up to you. All this is your mechanical setup and how I've broken it down. Open for debate. You know what? We didn't run the optimal tire all season last year. I would have put our tire at probably a 45, but I would have maxed out my track width. I would have maxed out my wheelbase. I would have maxed out my alignment. I would have maxed out my vehicle weight. I would have maxed out my vehicle weight distribution. Yeah, I maxed that out. My ride height was optimal, and then my shocks and springs, I'd put them at like a 4, and I did not have OEM suspension, so I put that at a 5. So I was running a 45% tire. I can tell you what tire I was running. It was a Zacnova SS 200 treadwear, really popular here in Canada. An overall good tire. The life cycle of it and the amount of grip that it has and how long it lasts. Lasting long is a good thing. Lasting long is a good thing because it'll give you that extra lap, which equates to your seat time, which is on another chart. But if a tire lasts long, it is better than one that's grippier and doesn't last as long. There's a lot of variables there. So I was maximizing my chassis to 81.5%. If I simply had have just put the best tire on the market, which I think we all know what it is, and I put that at 60, you would have seen my chassis going into competition. My car is at 96.5%. And then I could have adjusted that by going to the lowest tire pressure allowable for before you debeat. Put that at 10, change this to 5. Now I'm at 98.5%. I basically could have been at 100% of 100% available grip if I just put the best tire possible. And I tell you, I did that on the last round of the Gambler. Stopped running the tire that I was running all year. I put what I consider to be probably a 55% tire. And man, when you have the confidence of the tire, you basically feel like you're unbeatable. And that's how I felt. So that's it. That's all I have for you guys. Take this for what it is. I know it's a long one and a lot of talking and spreadsheets and stuff, but do yourselves a favor. Look at this chart. Maximize the largest percentage categories first, and then just go down the list. Make a list of your adjustments and do these adjustments. I thought about this a lot. It's, some people may disagree, but that's fine. Totally open for debate. We're heading to Ireland also next weekend, so there's going to be some cool content. I'm going to be competing in IDC. It's going to be really interesting, especially after the Drift Games. That is probably the most surreal thing that I've seen in a long time. We have tried to flood the support for them. We bought as much merch as we possibly could for the shop, and we will support them. They had 5 cars with FTF kits on them, all of them gone. Although I know that the kit would probably be, other than the Heim joints and the powder coating, probably fine. They're demolishing the entire shop with the cars inside. So those kits are no longer, they are gone. And it's really sad, but a lot of companies that supported them are all in this together, and we are going to be behind Drift Games and giving them anything that they need from us to further their business and recover, basically. And it's really cool to see how the community has gotten behind them. It is so important to always treat people with respect as they have. Always do unto your neighbor as you would want them to do unto you, and treat everyone how you'd want to be treated, basically. Really important, because in times of crisis like this, that is when you're going to reap what you sow. And they didn't even mean to do that. Like, they did not do all these favors and do all these things for people so that one day they could get it all back. That's really been shown by them not setting up a GoFundMe. They simply want to earn what they have done, and they want to sell the merch. So the best thing you can do by giving them some money or support is buying their merch, which you get something out of it anyway. So it's a win-win for everyone. I encourage you guys to go to their website and buy some merch. And thank you guys for watching our channel. I'll see you next time. That's a lot of talking. Bye.